Hello. Why is the music still going? Okay, there it goes. Maybe because I had this on. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Another live stream here at Office Hours. I am Matthew Groves, and today, if you weren't around for the little notepad earlier, we're going to continue working on the Conduit Project. You can see the GitHub for that if you just type in bang current project into the chat. My trusty chatbot will give you a link to that GitHub URL. Tail Learn Code, good morning to you. How is it going? Glad you're here. So today I want to talk about an issue that was running into last stream when I was building the CI in GitHub workflows. I ran into what I thought was a race condition, and I think I was correct, and so I've created a fix for that. So I want to talk a little bit about what I did to fix it and why it was an issue. And after that, we're going to go back to the Git profile handler, continue working on that. But last week, or maybe sometime in the shower, I don't know, I realized that probably taking the wrong approach to some of the database interactions with all the handlers, but profile handler specifically. And we're going to get into why we're going to finish that. Then we're going to get into why I want to refactor it, and then I'm going to refactor data access in a couple different ways. So I'm going to switch data access patterns, and I'm also going to refactor the data access to get it out of the handlers. I think it should be on its own somewhere, not in the handler itself. And I'll get into why I think that is and how it's going to work. It's not going to be that difficult to do, especially this early stage. So let's get into it. So let's start with a little bit of asynchronous programming and why it's an issue. So I'm going to bring up the NoSQL migrator here. And I'm also going to go back to the GitHub, where is it? GitHub workflow that I'm using for CI. Hey, thank you for the follow there, Galinus, or Galleon US. I don't know. Drop a little message in the chat. Tell me how you pronounce it. Thank you for the follow. I also want to give a shout out to Rajbo, or Ragbo, who also followed a couple days ago. Not on the live stream, but I appreciate the follow nonetheless. So thank you very much for that. I'm glad you're here. So if you remember back, ignore some of these. I was experimenting over the week. But if you remember back to this, I was getting some intermittent failures with the CI, the tests, basically. Because what was happening, if we go back to here, yes, it was getting this error right here saying key space not found in Couchbase data store. So what this means is that in my integration tests, I actually run all the migration, database migrations every time. And so one of those steps is to create a collection, which is a place to store data, and then create an index on that collection, which enables SQL queries on the data. So what's happening here is that the index creation was failing, but it was only happening intermittently. So why is that? Well, the answer is asynchronicity. So when I go to, well, probably should have kept the Conduit open. I'll open the Conduit project in Writer so you can see what I'm talking about here. And then I'll switch back over to the NoSQL project. Okay, so I'm going to allow this one. Technically, it has swearing in it, but this is how it's pronounced, is Gallienus. Gallienus. I'm glad you're here, Gallienus, and sounds very Latin, very Roman in the name, like you're a gladiator. Now entering the arena, Gallienus, the gladiator. So I'm glad you're here. All right, so here is Writer. Now, if we go over to, where's my, let's see, Explorer. Here we go. So in migrations, I only have the two right now, but these are running every time I run unit tests. Your Roman Empire, Emperor. Is an actual Roman Emperor name? Okay, well then, there you go. So these are just running every time I run integration tests because they create the structures and database stuff that I need to run the integration test. So this first one it just creates a collection with a given name inside a scope. That's all it does. I'm actually kind of wondering why I'm not creating the scope as well. That's interesting. Anyway, different issue. So it's creating a collection. That's the first one it runs. And then it runs this create index on the same collection. I think the reason is because this used to be default. I need to be more explicit about that. But anyway, so it's creating the collection, then creating the index. Now, if I was using a old-fashioned relational database, when you create a table, that is an operation that does all the table creation and then returns. And then similar with indexes, it creates the index, does all the processing, which can be an issue in production especially, and then returns. In Couchbase, however, by design, just about every operation in Couchbase is asynchronous, which means I tell Couchbase, create this collection. Couchbase says, okay, I will do that for you. Return. And then after I've executed the statement, it's not done yet. Couchbase is going to put it into a queue somewhere and say, okay, I will create that collection as soon as I can. It's done asynchronously, though. So I'm not going to have to wait here for the collection to be created. It just executes it and then returns. It's usually very fast creating a collection, but it does take some time for that to actually happen, right? It's asynchronous. And so what was happening is when I ran these tests when I ran these locally, I'm running on my computer against the Couchbase Capella out in the cloud. It was Azure East is where the Capella cloud was. So that was some latency between my computer and Azure East. So I was never running into this issue when I ran locally. When I deployed it to GitHub Actions or GitHub Workflows, however, which I believe GitHub is running on Azure and possibly in Azure East, the latency was severely reduced. Well, severely isn't the right word, dramatically reduced, right? Because it's the same data center at the very least. They could be machines right next to each other, for all we know. So because of that, now these tests were running fast enough where it wasn't as much delay, which means now it's introducing a race condition. So sometimes it would succeed and sometimes it would fail, depending on network traffic, I would assume, in the Azure data center. So therefore, I create the collection, return, then I try to create the index, but it's possible the collection was not yet created because it's done asynchronously. That's what's called a race condition. So therefore, the fault was not in the Conduit project. The fault is in the tool I was using called NoSQL Migrate, which is also a tool that I created myself. So what I had to do is here in the execute, this is all I was doing before, was just saying, create the collection, done. That's all I was doing. I had to introduce another step, verify collection creation. And what this is going to do is actually one of the things that's suggested by someone in the chat last time, so thank you very much. I think it might have been Taylor and Code actually, or somebody, suggested that I use Poly, which is a policy tool that helps you to build resiliency, I guess, into your application. So you can specify retry and how many retry attempts, and do you want to handle exceptions, things like that. Okay, it wasn't Taylor and Code. It was somebody in the chat suggested using Poly, and it's pretty great. I never used it before. It's pretty great because what you do is you specify a policy here. You say, well, I want to have a policy to handle something that returns a false. So in this case, I'm not handling exception, I'm handling a result of false. So if that's false, then I want you to wait and retry it up to 5 times. And then every retry attempt I want you to do, and this was something that ChatGPT suggested, because I said exponential backoff. So this is the math to do an exponential backoff. And what exponential backoff means is that you don't just retry immediately. You try it and then wait a certain period of time, try it again, and then you wait a longer, exponentially longer period of time. So that's why it's to the second power here, based on the number of retry attempts. So I think this is 2 to the power of the number of retry attempts. All right, so the more retry attempts, the longer this is going to be exponentially. So you can imagine an exponential curve, not just a linear curve or a flat curve. No, I don't know whether there's even a curve, but exponential. So the more retries, the longer that wait becomes. And the reason for that is because if you try immediately 5 times in a row, chances are a retry is not going to help, right? So retry, wait longer, retry, wait even longer, and so on. So all you do with this policy is you define a policy in C# like this, and then you use that policy to execute something. So this is the code in here that will be retried, assuming this returns false. And this will return false if the collection does not exist. And the collection will not exist until, Couchbase is done making it. So chances are this is only going to retry maybe 1 time, all right? But it could retry up to 5 times. So this is just a way for me to verify that the collection exists after I create it. Okay, easy enough. And so that will probably solve the issue, but I wanted to get ahead of myself a little bit, so I also added that to scope creation as well. So basically the same thing. Retry it to 5 times exponential backoff, but this time it's only if the scope doesn't exist will I retry it. And I also added it to index creation. So here's the index creation. This is a little more complex. This is a bunch of stuff to create a create index command, basically. So I'm sure this could use improvement, but this works. But I added a verify collection creation here. I want to verify before I try the index that the collection exists. So I'm doing 2 verifications here. So I'm verifying that the collection exists, which is the same thing I was doing before. So this might be a little redundant, but better safe than sorry, I think. I want to avoid those race conditions. And then also it will verify that the creation index command ran successfully. So in this case, it will be an exception. So any exception that happens here, I'm going to retry it. I'll go ahead and create that index. This is what's going to be retried. So this is the policy here. It will be retried to 5 times. If that doesn't succeed after 5 times, it will then throw an exception as well. The last retry failed. Now, one thing I do need to update this project with, and it's in the backlog, is a better job of being more verbose and logging what's going on to the end user. But not a top priority for me right now, especially because I'm the only person using this project, to my knowledge. So that's what's going on there. So I made those changes, and after I did that, what I did was I went ahead and, there's no real way to be 100% sure that I got all the race conditions. Hey, Gamlor, what's going on? Glad you're here. But here is the push I did. All I did was I deployed a new version of NoSQL Migrator, so you can see that on NuGet.org, NoSQL Migrator. There it is. I deployed 0.03 alpha, so that's where we are here. 35 downloads. I'm assuming most of those are coming from GitHub. Hey, it's Napalm684. Glad you're here again, Napalm. Good to see you. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I don't know if I thanked you for it last time, but 10 days ago, Napalm followed. So maybe it was Napalm that suggested using Poly. Or maybe it was Gamlor. I don't know. I'm using Poly anyway. So anyway, all I did was I updated this NoSQL Migrator package on NuGet, and then I updated the version I'm using in Conduit. And then what I did was once it's committed and passed, I ran this job like 5 more times. And it passed every time. So as far as I know, there's no more intermittent failures due to that issue. These other red ones you can ignore because I was messing with some code coverage stuff earlier this week, and lots of failures going on there. So ignore those. But the main thing here is I did update NoSQL Migrator to address those intermittent integration test fails. And so that is an improvement there. It's one of those things you get from dog fooding. It's great to actually dog food a project, because then you can actually use it and see what's wrong, see where it can be improved, and not just throw it out there and say, hey, you use it. No, this is where I can learn from my own usage as well. So, and speaking of dog food, by the way, I'm not sure who asked about this, but someone asked about the dog food con here in Central Ohio. Maybe that was Napalm, actually. And I don't heard anything yet, but I did send a DM to whoever's running that Dog Food Con Twitter account, and I've not heard anything back yet. So that's probably not a good sign. It means either that that person is not monitoring their Twitter, which I guess these days is a possibility. They could have abandoned Twitter, or possibly whoever was managing that account is changed their email address or something like that. So I did send that out. I wasn't sure who else to contact about Dog Food Con, but no response yet. I will keep you updated on that if I hear anything. Okay, so I got that error fixed. Very happy about that. This is just one of the things with async and with threading. Yes, it was a very good conference. It was killed because of 2020. I say killed, but it might not be dead yet. Who knows? But they haven't had one since 2019. But this is one of the dangers of async and threaded and any sort of thing where there's concurrency involved. Is it wasn't my code that was asynchronous. Is Couchbase, but I still have to account for that. So just one of those things. I had to add some verification in there because in this case, asynchronous wasn't really benefiting me. I'm creating those things. I want them to be synchronous, but there is, as far as I know, there's no way to tell Couchbase, hey, create a collection and be synchronous. Now there are some ways to update data that's not synchronous, but you can provide more of a guarantee. But as far as creating collections and stuff, it's something I had to just put in some verification for. No big deal, but we did have to address that race condition. So, all right, so let's get on with some coding. We're going to work on the profile handler some more. Before I do that, though, I do want to ask, since I got a lot of you here in the chat here, I want to ask your opinion on something. So every one of these Twitch streams, I've been exporting to YouTube on a playlist. And you can see the bottom of the link over there, bit.ly/GrovesTube. That'll take you, not to the playlist, will take you to my YouTube, and the playlist is there. Another thing that I'm experimenting with is getting the streams, which are generally 3 hours long, edited and condensed down into shorter summary videos. Hey, Few Bits, thanks for joining. Good to see you here. First timer, Few Bits. Welcome. So anyway, hey, and thanks for the follow, Few Bits. I appreciate that. So Few Bits and Taylor and Code and Napalm and Gamlor and Gallianus and everybody else who's still in the chat, chime in on this. So I've got the full stream videos. Those are something I can just export to YouTube from Twitch, and I can create a description of those. What I'm experimenting with is these summary videos where I can actually get an editor, someone who's actually, is good at editing Twitch videos down into a shorter, more consumable version. And I'll have a link to those as well. So then where I can see this going is, every week I have probably at least 2 streams. I'll get those edited down. Those take 3 or 4 days to get edited down and post and, get those uploaded somewhere. Probably the official Couchbase YouTube is where those are going to live. And these full streams are on my YouTube. And there'll be a description. And then for the summary videos, I'll have like a little chapter list as well. So this is for the people who don't want to sit through the live 3 hours or don't want to sit through the 3 hour video later. They can go watch the summary, click on the little chapter links and say, oh, I'm interested in ChatGPT. What did he say about that? Oh, I'm interested in Poly. What did he say about that? So these are shorter videos, maybe 15 to 20 minutes long. My question for you all is, if I do this, if I start creating a running list, a running table of all these different video clips, descriptions, chapter summaries, where should those live? Where would be the best place to put those? And the answer might be multiple places. But here's some options I was thinking of. So one is I put them in the README file on the GitHub Real World project. So if I'm browsing the YouTube or browsing GitHub, I come to that repo, then I can see, oh, there's a whole video, basically guide to how he built this and how I might build something similar. Another thing might be a Couchbase blog post. So couchbase.com/blog is where I've published a lot of blog posts. But I could create a blog post that continuously gets updated with all these different bits of information and links to YouTube videos. Or somewhere else. Where else would be a good place for this? What haven't I thought of that might be a good place? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, where would you, first of all, would you be interested in this kind of thing, just in general? Summary videos, links to the full streams, short descriptions, as we go. And where would you best, where's the best place to put those things? So think about that and throw your message in the chat there. I'd just love to hear your feedback on that. Napalm suggests GitHub. Go with the GitOps friendly approach, and maybe a blog post as an index to what is out on GitHub. Okay, yeah, so just a blog post, maybe just a blog post, Couchbase blog post that points to GitHub, and maybe with the description of Conduit Project, etc. I'm interested in why you're saying the GitOps friendly approach. Why would a list of links to videos be GitOps friendly? What do you mean by GitOps specifically? I guess because basically I'm using Git to manage the content, sort of thing. But yeah, so just a blog post that points to GitHub, and then GitHub will be updated with the latest videos, as I add those. And what I imagine happening is this table will grow every week, and it will always be a full stream link, but the summary videos will take longer to show up there. So GitHub's basically, you're saying GitOps is just everything, documentation, deployment, instructions, everything else exists with the code. Git-centric source of truth. Yep, okay. Git-centric source of truth. Okay, so that sounds good to me. And why do you think that would be? Do you think that would be the most accessible approach to sharing these videos? You think most developers are going to find them that way? And do you think it'd be worthwhile sharing them somewhere else as well? Of course, the Git is kind of the central place, but would there be any value in basically copying that same content somewhere else? I don't know how you browse through GitHub or anything, but I don't just browse through projects and check them out. Danielko's in the house. What's up? First time chat. I can't believe that. I can't believe you've never been here before, Danielko. Great to see you. If the video is with a project, it goes with yes, and the index helps out with Google discoverability. Okay. Danielko, I'm glad to see you here. And you might be wondering, how in the world does he know how to pronounce that guy's name when he can't even pronounce Gallienus' name? Well, because I have met Danielko in person, and he has personally given me the pronunciation. So yes, Danielko. It is the Danielko. Go ahead and plug your blog there, Danielko. Although I'm sure many of you have seen his blog in lots of Google results. That's something every once in a while I'm Googling some issue, and bam, there's Danielko's blog to give me the answer. So there you go, danielkoweb.com. Definitely check that out. So a lot of blog posts describing something that points to a repo. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm with you there, Napalm. Yes, okay. The other thing that might be the case, and I'm going to say a dirty word here, so nobody panic. I actually work for marketing. Sorry, no one leave. It's okay. I am a developer working in the marketing organization, and one of the things that possibly might be the case, oh no, don't boo me. I'm sorry. I work for the marketing department of a company that makes a database. So I feel like being a developer in the marketing department is actually a benefit to developers. So that's why I'm in marketing. So, but what I'm saying is someone's got to pay for editing these videos, right? Taking a 3-hour video stream down to a 20-minute, 15-minute video stream, that's not an easy task. That's time consuming. So that's got to be paid for. So if marketing pays for this, marketing might also want to put these videos, somewhere that's marketing friendly. So that might also be something I have to think about. There isn't an AI to do this yet. To do the video editing, oh my gosh, I wish there was. That would be, even if it was only 80% as good as a human editing, I would love that. There probably is some video editing solutions out there in AI, but they're probably very expensive. Especially we're talking a 3-hour stream down to 15, 20 minutes. That might be something in the future. I would love it, but not there yet. So that might be a link, to the Couchbase site, or it might be a YouTube link. We haven't really decided yet. We're still in very early stages, but that's kind of how that's going to work. And so what I'm saying is, yes, a blog post, a Couchbase blog post that would point to some video URL or some GitHub repo, that might be marketing friendly as well. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for your input. And if you have more thoughts, throw them in the chat there. I'd love to hear more about them. So let's get back to coding though. Enough marketing talk, right? Okay. So this is my, okay, I need to close out of this. I need to get Conduit back up here. And I'll close Writer. I don't have anything against Writer. It's just that I think the GitHub Copilot chat plugin and the chat GPT, the browser plugin Visual Studio, I think they're a little bit ahead of Writer right now. I think Writer will catch up for sure, but that's kind of where I am. So we might switch back to Writer from time to time. But for now, for today, Visual Studio 2022 Enterprise Edition, by the way. Okay. So what I was working on, trying to get back in the context here, is this is a endpoint. Let's bring up, I have this up twice. Okay. The issue here. So this is an endpoint to get a profile. Authentication is optional. We discussed why authentication is optional last time. It's basically, it comes down to the idea of following other users. We don't have that functionality yet, but that's why this down here says following equals false, because right now there's nothing tracking whether I'm following anybody. So this is kind of a chicken and egg situation, because in order to create a follow and unfollow endpoint, I have to be have that information in there as well. So I have to have the profile available. So a few bits. Probably you can start with summary for subtitles instead of summarize video stream. Sorry, I've just joined out of context. Summary for subtitles. So summarize video stream. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean there. Basically, every Twitch stream is 3 hours long. There's no way I can summarize those. But hiring an editor to take those and edit them down to 15, 20-minute videos with some chapter headings. Subtitles is an interesting issue as well. Subtitling a 3-hour video is, even with AI, that's daunting to do. Although certainly it could be worth it. There are some plugins, by the way, that can do automatic voice recognition for Twitch, but those are always hit and miss. So yeah, I was just thinking of just not, individual videos, whatever, we can put descriptions and chapters in there, but where would I share this list of all these videos? That's kind of the thing I was asking. Like, where should this be posted? The list of videos, short descriptions, all those sorts of things for the whole video series. Okay, all right, so I think this is doing a SQL query to select the user by username. And this is the point where I was like, well, the data access needs to be different here. But let's just get this to work first, make sure this works. It's going to get the first user out of this. So it only should ever be one, but we'll get the first out of there. If user not found, return user not found equals true. Otherwise, we're going to return the get profile result, which all we need is, hey, it's Guy from Mars. What's going on? He loves to do this thing where he only puts one T in my name. That's like his running joke, Guy from Mars. It's Matthew with 2 T's, yes. But good to see you here. I'm glad you're here. Random question. Anyone in chat ever use DAPR? Or, sorry, DAPR. I think you mean DAPR. The microservices framework from Microsoft. I have not used it, but yeah, anyone else in chat? Jump on in if you've ever heard of DAPR before. Different from DAPR. That's a data access tool for .NET. Okay, so this returns the profile. I think this is probably going to work as is. Now, I don't have any validation yet. I'll have to add that in a second here. But Gamblers only ever use DAPR, the data access library. Naming is terrible, always causes confusion. Yeah, it is. It is. And I think Microsoft was kind of yelled at, I guess is the right word, for doing that. But, naming is hard, right? Naming is very hard. I'm sure that they thought this was very clever, coming up with DAPR as a synonym for DAPR, right? But, yeah, I think they underestimated how much DAPR is beloved by .NET developers. So let's see if this works. What do I even have in there as far as data? I think it's Jake from State Farm, right? Is the data that's already in there. My trial cluster. buckets. I'm going off to the conduit, default scope, users, collection. Yeah, there's Jake. So his username is Jacob. So put Jacob in there. Let's see if this works. Okay, so I got a null reference exception. All right, so this is naming and cache invalidation, two hardest computer science problems. Yes, and actually, speaking of caching, you got to hide your email. What email? You're talking about Jake's email? That's a fake email. You're talking about this one right here? Or are you talking about when I logged in? Don't worry about that. That's okay. I'm not worried about that email address at all. This wouldn't be the first time I showed it on the stream. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. Okay. In fact, you want to use that email? You want to send me something? Go right ahead. Yeah, Jake is not a valid domain. I don't think. Well, it might be. Who knows? They got a lot of TLDs today. So anyway, this is the problem of sort of like picking back up where I left off, because now I don't remember why this is giving me a null reference exception. So let me just double check here. I'm going to go back to the endpoint, and I'm going to set it breakpoints just so I can figure out where that null reference thing is happening. Jacob. All right. So there's username. Yeah, there's nothing in auth header. Is this where it fails? Okay. Yeah. So that's what the problem is for not having unit tests. If string is null or empty, bearer token header, then just return null. I don't have any token to process yet, so I'm not logged in. So that is a totally valid thing to have no header token there. So let's try it again. Jacob. Okay, so there we go. Now it works. So there is Jacob's profile following false, which basically all that means is you are not, whoever you are logged in, you're not following Jacob. And in fact, I'm not logged in, so just by default, I can say I'm not following you. Now, another valid approach might be, well, you're not even logged in, so don't even show following. But that would take a little bit more work, I think, because I'd have to put some logic into JSON deserializer. I don't really think that's worth it at this point to do that. Maybe when we get to the UI portion in the far future, that could be an issue. But for right now, I'm just going to roll with it. So anyway, that works. Need to put validation in here. So let's do that next. Do I have a validation file? This is a get profile handler. Get profile request validator. Yes, here's a validator, but nothing's actually being run on it. Nothing's actually in there yet. And unfortunately, this is going to be a copy and paste type situation. This validation code, which I don't really like, but that seems to be the recommended way that Fluent Validator says to go. So there's the validation. Don't have a validator, so I need to put in what's the injection for that? Just iValidator of the type. Okay, so iValidator of get profile request validator, and just read only. So there we go. What doesn't like about this? Well, this is not correct, obviously. This should be get profile result. Okay, but what's going on here? What don't you like? Squiggly red lines? Huh? Argument 1 can't convert from what? Get profile request validator. Oh, okay. No, I'm not validating the validator. Whoops. Okay. Yep, just a little typo there. There we go. And what is unhappy about this? Oh, because I'm already using results somewhere else. Okay. Yep, okay, so this should be a validation result. This is another good reason I should refactor this later on, because now I'm starting to worry about this stuff, this code getting tangled up here. So what I want to do, as you can see from a to-do here, is I want to take all this data access stuff, put this into its own, at least method, or possibly its own class. And so we'll slim down this handler, and we'll keep the data stuff separate from the handler. Handler just kind of becomes more of a traffic cop type of situation. Don't want to go too crazy with that, because the controller action is already kind of a traffic cop. So we have a situation where we have a traffic cop handling off to another traffic cop. So it gets a little bit ridiculous, but I think it'll be useful to at least make this into its own function, if not into something like a repository or data access layer. I'd love to hear your opinions on that, by the way. So if you think that, I should put this in its own function, its own class, what do you think I should do with this data access code so that, it's not here in the handler, or at least not in the handle method. Okay, so there's some validation. There's no validation here yet. So what should be the validation? Well, if we go back to the requirements here, it looks like the only thing it's passing is a username, right? That's really the only thing that's required. So I'll just say x.username is not empty with message. Username is required. Okay. And then, as you saw, the bearer token, so here's the only things that are in there. It's just two things, username and bearer token. Username is required, obviously, to look up a user. And writing the name, bearer token is optional. So that's okay if it's null or empty. It's totally fine. So that's really the only rule that there is username is required. So let's just show that in action here. And go back to username here, and we'll try it out with a username that doesn't exist. And hopefully this will return a, 422, username not found. So 422 is the code for what? I don't know these codes very well at all. 422 is the unprocessable entity. So the other error you can get is username not found, but that's actually something that the handler has to do. So it actually goes into the database and sees that username exists, and that's why it's a separate message here, because it's not a validation error, it's just a database, hey, I can't find that user. It would be kind of silly to do that twice. In the case where the user is found, I look it up, yep, it's there. I look it up again, yeah, it's still there. So it's that's why I made it a separate condition here. So I think we're good to go. Happy with that. We'll talk about refactoring in a second, but I need to write some unit tests now. So let's go over to our test project. We'll start with unit tests and auth, and this is a get profile handler. So we'll do get profile handler tests. And once I get into this, you're going to see another reason why it might be good to refactor the data access code into its own class. And that's because the mocking is a little complicated, because I'm mocking Couchbase API, basically. I'm mocking things like query async and query options, which is fine, but it does mean that the mocking gets complicated. So if I can wrap those into their own class, then I can more easily mock out what I expect the database to return. For a unit test, that's what I want to do. Integration test, I want to actually hit the database, so I don't have to worry about that with the mocking. Now, is that a good enough reason to refactor into its own class? I don't know. Again, I'd love to hear your opinions on how you think this should be separated, if at all. But I'm gonna proceed with writing the test as usual. knowing that I'll have to come back and refactor these tests probably. You vote for yes. You vote for yes on what? Moving into their own classes? I guess I could have probably known that would be your opinion based on some material I've been reading lately. So anyway, let's get going with these tests. So just kind of look at the other tests. How did I set those up? So yep, there's this base class situation. Test fixture, is that MS Test? No, this is NUnit. I never really used MS Test very much in my life. I've used a lot of NUnit. I've used MSpec, used a little bit of XUnit, but I am a big fan of NUnit, just kind of what I always like to use. So that's what we're talking about here with test fixture. Do I need the mock auth service? I'm not sure yet. I'm going to comment that out. I'm not sure if I need that. Okay. I was going to say MS Test, make the bad man stop. I like XUnit. Yeah, I think Microsoft themselves actually using XUnit more than MS Test these days. How's that for irony? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not. I think XUnit's fine. I'm not a huge fan of it. There's some things about it that I find kind of awkward, but there was a period of time where I think for Xamarin or something, you had to use XUnit. Like that was the only thing that was supported. But yeah, I like NUnit a lot. I still use NUnit, and but if you like XUnit, write them in XUnit. That's totally fine. Okay, so yeah, so I want to write a test, and we're going to make this one happy path. First, that a user profile is returned with valid username means user profile is returned. All right. You actually thought MS Test was deprecated, but apparently not. That's interesting. I didn't think that, but as little as I see of it out there, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure that there are some organizations that built, when MS Test was first released, they built huge suites in MS Test, because a lot of organizations, for better or for worse, they only use official Microsoft stuff, right? NUnit's open source. No, can't use that. But yeah, I'm sure there are companies with big MS Test suites out there. Microsoft definitely promotes XUnit, that's for sure. Like every open source Microsoft project that I've seen, I'm sure there are exceptions, but they're all using XUnit. So, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, XUnit was actually created, I could be wrong about this, created by a Microsoftie, or maybe an ex-Microsoftie, Brad something. Your testing stack is usually XUnit. Fake it easy. I've not heard of Fake it easy before. Let's take a brief sidebar to see what this is. I'm curious. The easy mocking library for .NET. Dynamic fake framework, creating all types of fake objects, mock stubs, etc. All fake objects are fakes. Fluent layer over mock. Oh, really? Okay, so this is just using mock behind the scenes. Mock. I like to say mock, because I feel like it's got a little extra panache. Mock. So interesting. This is a layer over that, because I'm using mock in my project here. But I'm kind of liking this Fluent stuff. A dot. Yeah. It's very Englishy. A lollipop equals a fake candy. Shop equals a fake candy shop. Interesting. Well, I'm not going to switch right now, but something I'll have to keep in mind for later. It's interesting, kind of additional layer of fluency, which might actually be helpful in some of these couch-based mocks I'm making. They are a little bit wordy, as you'll see soon enough. But okay, so we need to act. So where do I set up the handler usually? All right. Oh yeah, I just do it in a range. Okay. So well, here's the handler. And it's not get current user, it's get profile handler. which needs the user collection mock, user collection provider mock, and the validator, which I can just totally just instantiate that. There's no reason not to. Consider that kind of part of the handler, even though it's a separate class. I could put a fake in there to just validate everything, right? But I don't think there's any point to that. Okay, so then the result equals await handler dot handle, need the request and no cancellation token. Okay, so I need to arrange the request. Next, which should be very simple. Request equals new get profile request, and it will just have a username of, I don't know, fake username. Now we'll get creative with this. We're going to put in the last person to chat, napalm684, and no bearer token. I might need to pull this out into its own variable later, but let's just keep going. And I also need to arrange for, for user to be in database, in mock database, I guess. So that is going to be user collection mock setup, not setup, setup m dot. See, this is where it gets a little bit wordier with the mocks. It might be a good reason, at least partial reason, to just put it out to its own classes. No, not there. Handler. So I basically want to mock this query async to whatever it does, return a valid user, right? So query async, m dot. Oh, it's not the collection I'm mocking. No, that's right. With queries, you don't use a collection. You use the cluster itself. So cluster is what I want to mock. M dot query async. Did I have dynamic in that? Is that what I was using? Or did I use user? User. I don't really care. Well, yep. I don't really care what the what the query string is. I'm not trying to test that. That's foolishness to try to do a SQL parse type test. No way. Any query options is fine with me as well. Okay, I do want it to return. Dot returns async, and this is going to return the user in database. So I need to set that up. User in database equals new fake query result of user. So I did create this mock earlier. Is that right? Why is it a list? Oh, right, because this is SQL, so it can return multiple results. Even though I only expect it to be one. So a list of user, and so let's just have one user in there. Username equals, and this is where I want to put it into a string, bring napalm684 into its own string. Look at that, Napalm. You've been promoted to having your very own string in my code base. Yep. What is you doing, Visual Studio? Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're all over the place. So much. Okay. Ignore that. Edit that out. Okay, username, and then the rest of the stuff, it doesn't really matter what's in there. Actually, because only a few things are returned for the public. Email is not one of them. So it definitely doesn't matter. This has got a URL. Doesn't matter. .example.net/whatever.jpg. Password. I mean, again, this definitely should not be shown. This is a public profile. But I'm just putting it there for completeness. Okay, so there's the result, and then we need to make sure that that matches. So assert that result is not null. Assert that result dot profile view is not null. Okay, so at this point we know we got a profile, so which is good. Result dot result dot profile dot username is equal to username. And probably I should put this out into its own variable as well, so I can reference that. Okay. Profile dot, what else is on there? Image is equal to user dot image. Bio, yep. I'm going to change this to be, no, that's fine, that's fine. Is that it? Username, image, bio? That's all that's on there? Following is on there. Following, we're going to call that one false. Just hard code that for now because I haven't handled that kind of stuff yet. Okay, run it. Is this going to pass? Yay, passes. Okay. Okay, so that's the test if the user is there. Now let's write a test. Username, let's see. Username not found, I guess. Not found. So it's going to be a very similar test. So just copy this whole thing to start with. It might be very similar. It's going to be mildly similar. Okay, so in this case, I don't, yeah, that's fine. We can leave it as napalm. We can say napalm doesn't exist. Sorry, napalm, you don't exist anymore. I just erased you from all of existence. I don't need to put a fake user in there. So what's going to happen is that it's going to return nothing. So I do need to put no users found result. Just going to be an empty list. Nothing there. And all that stuff goes away. Profile view is going to be null because result.user not found is going to be true. Okay. So shorter test, and it passes. Let me just run them both just to make sure. Passing. Okay. What's the other test? I mean, that should be enough. I'm not testing the token portion. Probably should. That seems like more of an integration test, though. Let me think about this. Get profile handler. Where do I actually use that token, by the way? I'm not using it. So that's something, that's functionality I didn't put in here. I forgot about that. Something we can write a test first. So that token is to get the current user or who the current user is following. So I don't have any of that stuff yet. So that needs to be a to-do. If token is, let's just say if JWT is specified, use that to determine if the logged in user is following this profile. And that really is this part down here, determine following or not. That's all that token is for, is to determine, hey, logged in user, are you following this user? If so, following equals true. Otherwise, following equals false. So don't have that yet, so I can't do that yet. Okay, so I think this endpoint is good to go. I should create an integration test for it as well. I kind of want to hold off on that, though, because I'm going to do some refactoring. So you might say, well, Matthew, you should have some tests in place so your refactoring you'll be able to know if your refactoring is valid or not. And to that I say you're right, but that also means a lot more typing. I don't want to do that. So I know I'm going to refactor, so I'm going to hold off on that test. But what I'm not going to hold off on is updating the documentation for this endpoint while I'm here. That's something that's not going to change. So we'll start here. Documentation. So this, I want to get the public profile for a given user, and remarks. This is where I put the link to the conduit spec, just over here somewhere. Why didn't I link to the spec? Real world. Where is that? Endpoints. Here we go. The spec is right here. Get profile. So this is the link, and you can put HTML in these remarks. Conduit spec for get profile. All right. Returns profile. Okay. And param name. How am I going to do that? Is this going to be just put it here? Username required. And okay, I would say if it's important to note this: if the user making, or if a JWT token is given, is supplied, is in the headers, I guess, the following status will also be returned. Although it's always going to return following. It's just going to be false. Okay, and then the response codes. So I'll just copy these to get started. Return the profile. I'll say public profile. Okay, unauthorized. It's not going to ever return that because authorization is optional. And 422 updated request was invalid. That's this one right here. Unprocessable. Yep. Okay. And so let's just see how that looks in Swagger. Okay. There's the description, username required, that's what I wanted to show. So there's a public profile, or the response codes, I mean. So that's all good there. Okay, so that was easy enough to add that documentation. This is a much less complex endpoint from a consumption standpoint than, say, puts, where I have this whole schema that I wanted to document. So this is much less complicated from that point of view. So there I go. I've got the documentation set. Perfect. I don't know about perfect, but yeah. All right, let's go ahead and commit then. Step 1, get it functional, swap counts. 2, get it tested. 3, get it refactored. 4, get a refreshment. I like step 4. That's my favorite. I tweeted yesterday that I was out of coffee, speaking of refreshments. So I actually had to go to a local establishment to get my giant cup of coffee today. And I bought some grounds while I was out. So crisis averted. But that's what I'm drinking today is gas station coffee. You're out too? Oh, you're out of coffee. Yep. Oh, man, you got to watch that. It'll sneak up on you. I tell you, one little box of the, what's the coffee that I buy usually? What's the one in the yellow package? Cafe Bustelo, is that it? Yeah, this is what I usually buy. Cafe Bustelo. I buy these little bricks. Wow, that's expensive. This is more like it. This is what I get. I usually get it from Kroger. But it looks like a lot when you buy it, but it goes really fast. So maybe I'll buy one of these bigger packages next time I go. Or taking coffee recommendations in the chat, by the way. I'm a big fan of... All right. We're getting off a coffee tangent here, I guess. These right here. This is fantastic. The Cinnabon cinnamon roll coffee, I love it. The problem with this is that it's only in K-cups, which I'm not against it. It's just that they take up so much space and they're so expensive. I prefer the grounds, but these are terrific. Black Rifle coffee. I don't know if I've ever had that before. Yeah, it's fantastic. I got a package of Cinnabon K-cups for Christmas, I think. And yeah, I loved them. I've tried Dunkin' makes a cinnamon coffee. Not nearly as good. Black Rifle Coffee Company. Tastes like freedom. Dominican Republic coffee called Cafe Santo Domingo was also amazing. Well, that's interesting. I should also mention that I'm a total cheapskate when it comes to everything. So if these are really like premium expensive coffees, it's not going to happen. Which generally means if it's not available in stores, I'm not going to get it. They got the pods as well. Coffee Club, bestsellers. No, I don't know my location. Oh, Cafe Santo Domingo. Oh, it's kosher. Well, look at that. Okay, store locator. Oh, maybe I can find this in stores. No, both are reasonable. I'm not in New York. Okay, so if I wanted to get this, I'd have to drive up to the West Side, which it looks like these are only at like international stores, which is interesting. I'll have to keep that in mind. Yeah, it turns. Sorry, we just turned into a coffee stream. Okay, what we got? We have Freedom Roast Coffee. Freedom. Which one do you recommend in terms of Black Rifle? Because these look pricey compared to what I normally spend. Just Black. I don't know which one's. Oh, Just Black. There we go. $16 for one of these bags. Unless this is like a giant bag, I don't see myself buying this. Oh, I can get to 15% off if I buy 4 bags. Oh, this is a subscription as well. Single purchase. Okay, subscribe is a little cheaper. You can get it at Walmart much cheaper. Oh, really? I can get this at... Okay, maybe I'll pick it up at Walmart then. Good to know. Okay, yes. Sorry, Danielko. Got off a little tangent there. It happens sometimes. It's actually only cents different than Dunkin'. Yeah, okay. So there's a huge amount of Dunkin' flavors in the at most of these stores, and it's fine. It's just the cinnamon Dunkin' was not as good as the Cinnabon. So I would love to find that Cinnabon in like a bag or a canister. I would drink that stuff all year long. Right now, it's just kind of a Christmas time treat. And if you know me, if you follow me on Twitter and stuff, I do a coffee advent. I've done that 2 years now. It's a new coffee flavor every day during December. And that's how I found the Cinnabon coffee, which was delicious. Okay. Commit. We got to commit. Gallienus, I love coffee, but I don't much about just like coding, but try some Portuguese ones like Delta. Has a lot of variety, might be cheap to you. Black Rifle is available in Columbus. Okay. Good to know. I might go get some coffee at lunchtime. Maybe if I'm out picking up some lunch, I'll stop and get some Black Rifle. Actually, I picked up a canister of Folgers. Yeah, I know. Folgers while I was out getting this coffee here. So at least I have something in the house. But these are all great suggestions. I appreciate them, and I will keep you updated on my coffee escapades. This is number 5. So I want to tag this number 5. Get profile endpoint, unit test, and docs. Folgers, that's an abomination. You know, here's the thing. With Folgers, have you ever heard the joke before about New York City? No one ever drives in New York City because there's too much traffic. That's how I feel about stuff like Folgers. It's like, nobody drinks Folgers. It's way too popular. So it's just kind of like someone likes it. Someone's drinking it. It's got to have some level of quality to it. And don't forget that quantity and cheapness have a quality of their own. And that's the sweet spot for me. So we'll see. I've done Folgers before. It's fine. Okay, so here's my committing. Yes, there's the endpoint. You're a huge coffee snob. I'm not. I'm not a coffee snob. I got some to-dos I'm going to check in. I don't need to check that in. I'm not a coffee snob. I've actually only recently started drinking coffee. It's only been a few years. Cut to Matthew all jittery and stuff. Oh, I've been there before, where I put too much ground in my coffee maker, and that needs to stay. And I'm like, I'm too lazy to take it back out, so we'll just go ahead and make the coffee. Yes, I've been to the point where it's like, and even a little stomach kind of like gets a little tight, a little nauseous, like, what are you doing to me? Yes, I've been there. All right, so there we go, and these are all the handlers. Yep, test, okay. Commit, and go ahead and push. And this is actually going to kick off another CI build. So we can monitor that to make sure that the CI I was talking about earlier is still working. You started later than most do. I traveled for work and was in Memphis Airport. I see the sign of pumpkin spice latte. Call it my gateway drug after I was hooked after that. So pumpkin spice latte, to me, that sounds like you found a Starbucks in an airport. And I have no problem with Starbucks coffee. It's totally fine. My problem with Starbucks, especially in airports, is that huge lines, like 20 people waiting for Starbucks coffee. And I am not interested in waiting in line for Starbucks coffee when there's a perfectly good cup of coffee across the concourse on the other side. That's what I will do. I go into Columbus Airport when I travel all the time. Huge line out of the Starbucks there. Across the way is a Bob Evans. No line ever. Perfectly good coffee at Bob Evans. So much cheaper too. So that's where I will go. Yeah, when the company's paying for it, you try new things. Okay, look at that. It passed already? That's a very quick test. Well, hey, I'm not going to complain. It passed. When you visit the office, there's a coffee machine. It's not for me. Deliberately not buying a coffee machine for at home. All right, thanks, suit yourself. The airline club. See, I don't have any sort of airline club status, and I'm certainly not willing, because of my aforementioned cheapness, I'm not willing to pay the extra for the airline club. Although I think, if I'm not mistaken, I have a card that I got recently for a number of reasons. No, not this. Oh yeah, this is it. Worth every penny. I don't know about that. So I got this card. Does this come with any sort of free? No, this doesn't come with some of these cards come with like a free check into the club or whatever. This one does not, so I don't have that. Is it worth every penny? I'm not sure about that. I've never been in one, I'll say that. So maybe there's incredible experience in there. But frankly, if I had that kind of money to spend, I'd rather spend it on an upgrade in the actual airplane. Either to a bigger seat, exit row, or even first class. That's where I'd rather spend the money. I guess it depends on the airport, though. Like Columbus Airport, that's my home airport, but I don't intend to stay there very long. A food and a place to sit without having to worry about your stuff. Yeah, I don't generally carry a lot of bags through the airport. I just have my one backpack, so that's not a big benefit for me. And as far as food goes, I'm guessing, again, back to cheapskatedness. I'm guessing the price of entry into that club is much more expensive than, say, going to a fast food place in the airport, like a Chick-fil-A or a Auntie Anne's or something. So, not really worth it for me. But maybe someday. I'll give it a try. Okay. So that's committed. I got the docs in there, but I don't want to move it into done yet because we're going to do some refactoring now. Yes, we are. It's refactoring time. We got plenty of time to do it. So here's the question. Woohoo! Refactoring. If you fly unusually long distance, time spent in the airport is way more pleasant already. Do not need a club for that part. If you fly, it's usually long distance, so time spent in the airport is way more pleasant already. Do not need a club for that part. Yeah, I'm not quite following you, the gambler. You're saying because you fly a long distance, the airport is fine. You don't need a club. Yeah, I usually fly domestic, usually very short flights. The farthest I will go is, to California, and that's going to be 2 legs for me almost every time. So probably Columbus to Denver is the longest flight I will usually take, and then Denver to somewhere in California. Get current user handler. So the airport part is okay. Yeah, I got you. I'm with you now. Yeah, the airport, yeah. So one other thing I should mention, and this is, I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but Tail Learn Code and I are very differently sized people. I am about 1,000,000 feet tall, and Tail Learn Code is a little bit more on the below average side, which, again, I'm not trying to be insulting or anything, because actually it's a great benefit when you're on an airplane to not be the gigantic guy that's squeezed into the little seats. So yes, that is the most unpleasant part for me. Being in the airport, I can swing my arms around, I can stretch my legs out on the chairs, all those sorts of things. That's not a problem. So that might be part of the difference as well, is just because we're different sized people. Yeah, and then Danielle is about the same size as me. Maybe not quite as tall, but a little more muscular for sure. 6'4", yeah, so a couple inches off there. Yeah, working for a startup, very budget conscious, so you're not doing much travel. So, I'm not saying Couchbase isn't budget conscious, but part of my job is to go to user conferences and work the booth and present topics there. So that is part of the budget. So, yeah, Gamlor is a very average size, but your wife has a lot more room to move. Yeah, people are always like, oh, it must be nice to be so tall. Let me tell you, it is not all it's cracked up to be. I'm always banging my head on doorways and chandeliers. Can't fit in an airplane anywhere. Except for first class. First class is fantastic. Cars are a problem. Just regular cars are a problem. Dev advocacy. So technically, I'm not in the dev advocate team. I am in marketing. Sorry, I said that M word again. But I'm doing the same kind of things. I'm kind of more in developer relations in general. Right? But yes, dev advocacy, if you like helping developers, which, is a big part of dev advocacy, and you have a company that supports you, then yeah, I think it's a very appealing job. And that's why I got into it. Head trauma as you get older from hitting your head on stuff. Yeah, I'm not like brain damage, but certainly, if I ever went bald, there would just be like bruises and cuts and everything all over my head from everything I banged myself into. So, and my daughter is very, very tall right now. She's not as tall as me, but she's very, very tall, and she's experiencing the same things already, the same complaints about being tall, which might seem like, oh, hey, it's a champagne problem, being tall. Quit complaining. But all I'm here to say is it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not automatically makes your life more awesome, especially if you're not good at basketball. If you're good at basketball, then yeah, then it's quite helpful. But I'm not, and neither is my daughter. Although she's probably better than me at basketball. Okay, which isn't saying much. Okay, so refactoring, focus, refactoring. These are my thoughts on refactoring. So I have some JWT stuff here. This should probably be moved into the auth service, which I already have. I don't really know why I had this in here in the first place. It's not very much, but it should be moved into auth service. And I've also got some data access in here. So this is getting a user lookup by email, which I'm going to also change as well, but not right yet. So why not put this stuff into its own class, away from the handler? So let's start with the auth service. Okay, so this is, the weird thing about this is that if the token's not valid, this is going to throw an exception, right? I don't necessarily have to handle the exception in here, but I could say, let's just do this instead. We're going to auth service dot, this is going to return claims, right? So why not just have a return claims? Get claims from the bearer token. Okay, and we'll create a method here. What is claims anyway? That's just claim, okay? And so we'll just say list of claim. And this needs to be request bearer token. We can just say bearer token. All right. And then we'll move this stuff into the auth service. Okay, so this will be the bearer token. Okay, here's a question for you. Do I just return the claims, or should I say get email from token and just abstract it even more? I think that's probably where I'm going to go. Get email claim. Yeah, let's do that. Auth service. Because otherwise, I think I'm exposing too many details to the consumer of this API. Get email claim. Okay. Get email claim. All right. Oh, just say email because I have this outside of that. Okay. And so then email is going to be the first or default. Okay. But also I have to do this handling stuff because this will throw an exception if it's not happy with the token, which was argument exception. In which case I will return a what? What did I do here? Yeah, return I mean, this is not list of claim anymore. This is a string. I could make this a result object, right? Like a DTO. Otherwise, I'm just going to be returning null, which I'm not a big fan of. Oh, you don't say possible null reference return. You don't say. Feels overkill, but I think that's the way to go. So I could make a public class claim result, public string value, public bool is not found. Okay, you with me here so far? Return a new claim result. And that is going to be is not found equals false. That's the default value. I don't need to set that. And value equals email. So then in this case, I'm going to return claim result like so. Otherwise, if it's an exception, we're new claim result where is not found equals true. What don't you like about that? Huh? Not exist in the current context. What are we talking about here? Oh, because I have a stray semicolon. Okay, there we go. So what would you like about this? Yeah, because it's not implementing a service. You like this approach better? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure if there's a name for this pattern. Oh, you're talking about the semicolon. But yeah, I'm not sure. What do you think about this approach? About having this sort of extra object here so that I can have a value and it is not found, instead of having to worry about the next level up handling the exception. So this is, let's get rid of, yeah, okay, and then saying so email equals claim dot value. Sends me into twitches. Okay. I'm sorry. Do you have a preferred approach that I could use instead of this approach? Never more than one class per file. Oh, okay. So your problem is that I have this claim result in the same file. That's the main issue? I can certainly move that out, but you're talking about this. Wait, was it? You're talking about this right here being a problem. So, I'm generally with you. It's just that I find this claim result is probably, I want it to be restricted to auth service. I don't want to use it anywhere else. Because one thing that you could abuse, speaking of abuse, is, well, this is just a nice little convenient class I can put a string and a bool in, so I'll just use it everywhere. But I want this only to be used for getting claims, a DTO layer. I mean, yeah, I do have plenty of DTOs for other things, and this is a DTO. But it's the only place I really need a DTO for this auth service class, at least so far, right? I mean, I could change these from primitives to a class as well. That's going to be a lot of classes though. You often use such child classes for simple limited scope classes like this case. Yeah, I think this is probably okay. But I understand the impulse there, napalm. Create the claim request at the top of the method and set the props and then return at the bottom of the method. Create the claim result at the top of the method. You're talking about up here? You're just talking about a little bit of refactoring of, you're talking about like this. Duplicate claim result dot yes. New claim result. Claim result. I'm not sure how this is going to be all that much better, but claim result dot is not found equals true by default. And then you're saying claim result dot is not found equals false. Claim result dot value equals email. Get rid of this. Claim result dot is not found equals true. And then return claim result right here. Is this kind of where you're going with this? At least you're using a tuple. Don't get me started there. Yeah, tuples. Tuples. I don't think this is the right place for a tuple. Although, yeah, I don't think it's the right place for a tuple. No tuples, says Danielko. No tuples. God help you if I find a single tuple in your code base. Okay. So why is this approach better there, Danielko? Why is this, why would I do this instead of what I had before? Wouldn't need 73. Oh, just get rid of it? Just an empty catch? So one thing, I think it might be technically a more efficient way to write this code, but I'm not super concerned about efficiency. Yeah, I have problems with the empty catch too. So I think the way I had it before, I think it's kind of a little more readable. And, I might be a few extra opcodes in the underlying CIL, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. This is just kind of, I think this expresses the intent a little better. So I'm going to go with that. All right, so yeah. So there's that. Now I have, so that's JWT. I've refactored that, and I don't need this anymore because that's being handled by the auth service. Now this looks small here, right? It's just a couple lines of code, but it is data access code. You could do an enumeration property with the different status values. You're talking back here. Claim result. Oh, instead of is not found, I can make this status, and then have a is not found status. Yeah, I think if there are more than one statuses, or even more than two, it might be worthwhile. But I'm going to go with this. This is perfectly fine for now. But yes, enumeration is another direction it could go. So this has also got some stuff that's leaked into the handler here in terms of stuff we have to know about the underlying database, which is not that much, which is one of the reasons I hesitate to refactor this. But when it comes to data access, it might be something I'm going to refactor in the future, because this is getting a user by email. I'm going to change that to getting a user by, I'm going to change the underlying data model to, instead of using the user as the key, I'm going to use the username as the key. Sorry, instead of using the email as the key, I'm going to use the username as the key. So if I refactor this, then I only have to make that change in the data access layer. And I don't have to worry about making the change here in the handler. My main concern is that it might be overkill to do that. There's not much left of the handler, but I think it's probably the way I should go for multiple reasons. One of them is testing. The other one is changes to the data layer. You know, a lot of people say like, well, you should use the such and such pattern just in case you want to switch databases, which, okay, I understand I understand why that would be beneficial, but how often do you really change databases once you're in a project? Generally, you're speaking, in my experience, working as a database company, database changes don't happen while the project, close to, while the project in production, right? They might happen during the early stages of the project, but generally speaking, if let's say I build my project with SQL Server, and then later I realize, oh, Couchbase is a much better choice. Generally speaking, I'm not going to make that change in this project. I'm going to make it on the next project. So Taylor and Code says he's done that so many times. Yeah, right. Now, that being said, the actual database may not change, but the way you interact with the database may change, right? So in this case, this is a key value lookup. I might switch this to a SQL++ query later on. So that might change. And making that change means I have to touch this handler to make that change, which might not be the end of the world, but as you can see with this, some of it's already leaked in. Some of this exception handling is leaked in to the handler. So I'm going to go ahead and make the change. We're going to create some data access. You change your database daily. Best security defense ever. Keep them guessing. I love that. That's a fantastic security tool. Can't hack the database if you don't know what database it is. Oh, that's fantastic. That sounds like a version of Chaos Monkey, actually, which would be hilarious. Today, Postgres. Tomorrow, MySQL. After that, who knows? Okay, now we've got to think about organization a little bit. So I've got this services folder here where I have the auth service. And I was reviewing a book recently that suggested naming something as a service or as a repository makes a difference for intent and code readability. So what I'm thinking, I could create a data access folder here, or I could create something called a data service. So it would be something like user data service. So Danyoko, what are your thoughts on that? On that name? So this would have a method in it like get user by email. So Got to run. Hey, Gambler, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. You think data service would be great? Okay. So I'm going to say this has to go up here. User data service. Into the constructor injection, which is another trade-off of doing this, is that yet another service needs to be injected here. Are you referring to an EF repository? Yes. So someone, I was reading something recently where it said basically an Entity Framework already is a repository. DB Context is a repository. So if you're putting, if you're creating another class called, foo repository, you're just wrapping one repository in another repository, and it doesn't really make sense. So call it a service instead. Oh yes, it's a holy war for sure. But what I'm trying to do here, Napalm, is I'm trying to, make this project. I'm not interested in holy wars. I'm interested in making this project accessible, readable, understandable as best I can. So naming is important. Put EF behind an abstraction so you don't get stuck using EF. End of argument. Well, that's kind of what I was talking about with how often do you change your database, right? Well, probably not, but you might change from Entity Framework to using Dapper or Hibernate, or you might use all of them together in the same project, which I have done before. And so you can then create that kind of facade over your data access to say, for this method, I'm using Entity Framework. For this one, I'm using Dapper because it's easier and it makes sense there. So, yes, EF, ORMs in general are great until they aren't. Right? It's the 80-20 rule, I think. So I'm definitely experiencing this. I've used Entity Framework. I've used Hibernate in the past, other ORMs that I'm not going to mention by name. Yes, they are useful until they are not. Then they can be a real pain in the neck. But frankly, don't have to worry about ORMs because I am using a NoSQL database. So ORMs isn't going to just cut out completely and say, we don't need all that extra mapping layer. I can just go to JSON back and forth in Couchbase. So that's where we're going. Don't need to worry about EF. I'm not going to use it for this project or Hibernate or any sort of ORM for this project at all. I could use a repository pattern. So I'm not going to do anything like a unit of work or transactions, things like that. NoSQL like those competitors? How dare you mention them in my channel? I'm going to ban you now. No. Yes, it is like those. It is a JSON database. And EF does have a Cosmos provider. Yes, that is true. However, in that sense, I really wouldn't consider it an ORM at that point. It's really more of what we call an ODM, because you don't have to worry about the mapping of different relationships in, not relationships, but the mapping of all the, what's the word I'm looking for here? You don't have to worry about all the different tables coming together into one model. There's no mismatch is what I'm saying. You highly recommend that people do not use it. You do not like the Cosmos provider for Entity Framework. Very interesting. The benefit for me in Entity Framework, and I really wish Couchbase had one, not because I think it's the best way to go or that I love Entity Framework, but I think that it would allow developers to use Couchbase in a lot more places without having to write a bunch of Couchbase code themselves. There's all kinds of Entity Framework integrations out there. And it just helped developers be more productive, I think. So I really wish we had an Entity Framework for it. We don't have one, at least not yet. I'm still pushing for that. So anyway, we're getting off topic here. Of course, again, not really off topic. It's somewhat related. But yes, so now I want so I can take this comment away. So that comment is a liar now. Okay, so now I can say user equals data service.get user by email. It allows EF developers who'd never learned database programming to use Cosmos, but it turns Cosmos into a relational database in a sense. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, the Taylor and Code. I think you're absolutely right. But I think the difference here is that I'm thinking more about awareness. I want people to know about Couchbase and be comfortable diving in to use it. And Entity Framework may not be the way they should use it. It may not give you the full benefit of it, but I think that there's probably a lot of Microsoft .NET developers out there who think of Entity Framework as the only way to interact with data. And if there is no Entity Framework provider, then Couchbase may as well not exist, right? So that's kind of my point of view. I wish we had one for that reason. And I think that's probably the same reason the Cosmos one does exist, because Microsoft is well aware of the fact that Microsoft developers consider EF to be the one way to interact with data. And therefore, if there is no Cosmos provider for Entity Framework, I'm not using Cosmos. And they want people to use Cosmos on Azure. So I think that is the reason it exists. Okay, what have we got going on here? Oh, I've got this var user down here. Yeah, that's exactly why the provider exists. You've heard that from the Cosmos team. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. So once I refactor this, I can get rid of this try catch. Yes, so create this method. This is going to be user. Removing try catch, awesome. Well, I'm going to create another try catch in here. But let's comment this out as well. I don't need that part. That's another part that leaked into the handler, is this content as. But there's that, and there is this. And lots of red there. Don't panic. I'm going to get to that. This should be async as well. Task user. Okay. So this needs in the constructor a users collection provider. Conduit user collection provider. I have to sneeze here. It was a mighty sneeze. Okay, users collection provider. Thank you. Return user. Okay, now this needs to be a try catch in here. But we'll get to that in a second. So we can get rid of this stuff. And what doesn't it like about... Oh, this needs to be a wait. Okay. So I'm getting rid of a lot of code, which is always nice. Get rid of that, get rid of that. I've got another issue, though. It's not just that I need a tissue, because I was sneezing. The issue here is what happens if this fails. Oh, what was the... Shoot. What was the exception, by the way? Document exists exception. That's actually the wrong exception, though. Document exists means it's already there. You're trying to insert it, it's not already there. Document not found is the correct one. So, yikers. That should have been caught by an integration test, but apparently it was not. Although I haven't written any integration tests for this yet, have I? I have not. So there you go. Okay, so what do I return if that user is not found? Return null? I don't think so. That's not going to be very good at all. Try-catch is so odd, you can litter your code with them, and it's not good to do so. I'm not a huge fan of doing it at the top of, say, the HTTP stack either. Yeah, I don't like to use try-catch. I use it when I have to, right? In this case, I have to. If I try to get a document from Couchbase by this key, if it is not there, it will throw an exception. That is how this works. Although, let me think about this. Wasn't there there's another endpoint that they added? I think, yeah, try get catch or try get async. I could switch to using that. This one will, if the key is not found, it will return a result with a property set to false. Yeah, no one's figured out a good way to error handle. Go goes the other way and says let it happen, I guess. Let's force you to handle error. Yeah, okay. So yeah, there are some languages that basically have error handling forced into it. So Go is an example of that. If you ever heard of Ada before, the language Ada, it is a language that's used for situations where errors of any kind are not acceptable. So for instance, I believe this is used for missile guidance. A lot of software for missile guidance written in Ada. Missile guidance errors are just not acceptable. It is not, if my website, if Amazon crashes, it's not the end of the world. If a missile goes to the wrong place, that's a very bad thing. So, but the trade-off is Ada code has to be, is extraordinarily, every possible condition has to be handled. So it is a lot of extra code to write. But again, the trade-off is totally acceptable for missile guidance or, software like that where it's literally a life and death type situation. Okay, so I could remove the try-catch and use this. All this is really doing though is pushing the try-catch down to the Couchbase SDK, which might be fine. So let's go ahead and do that. Still have to worry about this issue though. This is going to be a user result now instead. Oh, what happened there? And so with user result, this has content as, right? So I still get that way, but then there's also this exists. Boolean on there. So what happens if this user doesn't exist? What should I return? Well, I don't think I should return a null. And that's really leaves me only one option, which is another DTO, right? In this case now, I think I do want to make this one a little more generic. All right, so stop me when you think I'm doing something wrong here. But I could say data service result of type T. And I will have a constructor that takes in T, data result, and also in this case, a data result status, which is the enumeration we talked about earlier. So in my case, I'm saying not found. Get only auto property and get only auto property. So then I can hang on, let's do this. If not does user exist, return new data service result of type user, where this is going to be null, but this is going to be not found. Why isn't it like this? Oh, because that's not. Nope, data result, data service result of type user. And then otherwise, I'm going to return new data service result user of user, and I have a new status called okay, I guess. I don't know. Nullable reference checks. Let's say if okay, an empty user instance. I've found these kind of patterns ugly though. Yeah, I do not want to return an empty user, an invalid user. Don't want to return that. Nullable reference checks makes that problem so much more visible and common though. You have to do something. Yes, I do have to. I don't want to return null. I do want to return something. So what I'm creating here is something that I can use for the rest of any other data access methods. So that's why I've made it, that's why I've made it generic. So it's data service result of type T, which will return the result and a status. What are your thoughts on this? It doesn't send you into convulsions. So that's good. That's a good sign. So then back here, I can say, I'll call this user result. And I can say if user result dot status not equals okay, then I can return a new result here. So it's just results all the way down. Let's see. Well, it's not invalid token anymore. It's just user not found. Do I not have that? So you just check status before you ever check value or result. That's right. I'm not sure if I like this or not yet, but I'm going there for now. I don't have a... What am I doing here? There is no... This is get current user result. How does this being called from the controller? Right here. User not found. So what was I doing before? Now, is it value or is result still nullable? Yeah, it's still nullable, but what you're saying is I should make it not nullable. Well, the default these days is to make it not nullable, right? Otherwise, I'd put a question mark on it. That's a whole different question, I think. But what was I doing before? Conduit, web, users, controllers. No. Handlers. Get current user handler. Is that what I'm refactoring? Get current user handler? This is where your version control really be helpful. See what was I doing before? Okay, I was always returning is invalid token, no matter what. That seems like the wrong behavior as well, because this would return invalid token if the user didn't exist. The token was fine, but the user didn't exist. The set seems wrong. So we're going to make that change. So let's start with up here. So here's the claim. If claim dot is not found, then we return new get result is invalid token is true. TLDR null is the devil, Bobby Boucher. That's right. Okay. No, I need the email there. Okay, so we get the result here. If the claim is not found, then just kick that back out to the controller, invalid token. At this point, we have a valid email. Now we'll try to get that in the database. If user result dot status not equals okay, then we need to return new user result, but a different one. We can say user not found equals true. Okay, and then back up in the controller, need to handle that. It was get current user, right? If result dot user not found, then also return unprocessable entity. Can I put a message in there? Model state error, just an error. User not found. WT not valid. Maybe a nullable user object, i.e. user.notFound. User.notFound, nullable user object. And then we can user, of course, from the user result dot data results. So this becomes the new handler. Step one. Have a token. Give me the email. I should call this email claim. Give me the email claim from that token. If you didn't get one, then it must have been an invalid token. Return. Now I have the email. So now give me the user in the database based on the email. Was that user not found? Then return user not found. Now I have the actual user from the database, so return that view model of that to the controller. I think that's pretty good. And notice I can remove all this system security and Couchbase stuff from the namespaces. Okay, get current user handler tests. Now I think we might get some failed tests. Let's find out. Because I added a couple situations to it. Oh, and this, yeah, it's not even going to compile. Because I added a new thing here, which was user data service. So this is the pain of kind of coupling my tests to the database early on. Is because now I have to refactor these tests. Well, this is an integration test. I didn't want to run that anyway. But that's failing because there's nothing there. Okay, so I have to fix these so it compiles. May as well start here. So get current user handler. Oh, let me go back to that actually. Let me see something. Do I still even need this? I don't need this anymore because that is now a detail of the data service. So I can get rid of that. So I was complaining about parameters, but I added one and I could remove one. So that's good. Also, this probably needs to be an interface for testing purposes. Right? User data service. And I'll just have the one in there. Get user by email. So far. There may be more. And these probably should go into, yeah, I could use create interface. So these should go into their own files as well. Let me make sure they're in the right place. Put this in the data service. So, yeah. XML, no. Just from one method, not worth it. No, it's not. But I'm going to add more later for sure. That's why the whole reason I'm adding this data service, making it generic, because I know there's going to be more coming. So, all right. So don't have to mock this anymore. Or not mock this, but instantiate this anymore. But I do have to put in a user data service, and this is where the provider will be. Napalm, no, it is okay. That is why I do this, because I want your comments, your suggestions, your commentary. Absolutely. That's why I'm here. So you do not need to shut up. Absolutely not. And you're not backseat driving. That you are providing very valuable commentary and ideas, and you're basically acting as a pair programmer. So I appreciate that. Do not get the idea that I'm just going to do it my own way without listening. I absolutely am interested in your feedback. So, okay. Fortunately, just the one test. So that's good. Okay, what else is broken? Get user handler. So this needs to be mocked. In that case, give me the keyboard. I'm not opposed to that. Maybe in a future stream we could do some literal pair programming over Twitch. That might be fun. And of course, it's an open source project. So if you want to take this on and try a PR, and then that way I can see what you might have in mind. You're absolutely welcome to do that. I would welcome those pull requests. So in this case, it needs to be a mock user data service. So where does that get created? New mock right up here. So user data service. Why do I have this as a private get set? There's no reason for that. Why is it even down there? Let's go up here. Okay. What don't you like about this? Oh, because that's still not expecting the interface. There we go. Easy enough. Okay. Now you have to do the same thing in all these other tests. Unfortunately. But this is going to make the project better. I think. So it's worth it. And I'm doing it early enough. I'm not gotten to many of the other requirements yet. So doing this early. Put in the setup. Put the handler creation in the setup. Maybe I could do that. Might be worth doing while we're here. SSB underscore handler. And remove that from here. Oh, wait, handler? Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Okay. Now you can see this is what I was mocking before. This user's collection mock. That needs to go away. Oh, wait, does it? Yes. Yes, it needs to go away. So instead I can say mock user data service setup the mock to m.getUser by email. This is going to be the email. You see this is a little less wordy. Returns async of user from database. No, this needs to be a data service result. User from database and status OK. And so, hopefully this should pass. Although it's not going to compile, right? Oh yeah. No. Is this thing going to compile now? Is that all the errors I fixed? Oh, okay, great. Okay, so why is this failing? We got an error right here. Oh, because I didn't mock out this. I need to mock that part out as well. So this whole thing can go mock with auth service. Set up that m dot get email claim. And I don't really care what the token is. I can put in fake token. Your first run should error. Yeah. If it doesn't error, then you're not doing something right. That's not asynchronous, so that's going to return what? New claim result. And is not found is false, and value equals email. Okay. Try again. Expected something, but was no. Okay. That's not good. Oh, it's generating the token here. Oh, that's why I had that mocked. Yeah, that's why I had that mocked. So why did I do it this way? Let's see. Let's go through this. Because it's returning the token. I'm not storing the token, so I have to generate that token every time. That's why I had that mocked out. Set up. What was that before? Gosh. This is, again, where the source control really helps. All right, so how do it tests? Units, auth, handler, get current user, yep. Show me that log. So what I had was this bit right here. No. This bit right here. I wanted to return a fake token. That's right. fake token was up here. It's a real token. It's generated, but I wanted it to match. Okay, so that should work, right? That should definitely pass this time. There we go. Okay, so there's some refactoring. With the test passing, I could test the integration while I'm here. Where is that one? Get current user handler. Yes. This will take a little longer to run, of course. But it works. All right. Thumbs up. You can't see it. When I do this, I'm usually thumbs upping, but I'm not monitoring my camera all the time. Thumbs up. Refactor with tests. Everything's working still. That makes me very happy. Okay. On to the next one. Okay. Let's do login request handler next. Okay. So I put the to-do here because I was going to revisit this. All right, but let's see what we've got here. We've got data access, checking the user exists. And then we make sure the password matches. Uses auth service, which is fine. And okay, so I think this just needs to be using that same service. Sorry, we got to go. Need to update some feedback on some documents by Monday. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Danielko. Good news though is I submitted the latest one yesterday, and that seemed very good. But good luck with that. Have a good one. Thanks for joining. Okay, so I get rid of user collections provider. Just received it. Oh, good. And they sent me 3 more to do, so I got to work on those. All right, this is the user data service. Oh no. Oh yes. Have a good one. Okay. So all this is doing is getting the user, basically. It's the same thing I was doing before. Await the data service, get user by email. It is this one right here. Okay. So I'm actually reusing some code, so that's kind of a good thing. So this is the whole user existing, which I already have, right? So make sure user exists. I can get rid of this, but I can say this should be user result. User result dot status equals data service result, data result status dot not found. Get rid of that. If it's not found, then unauthorized is true. Okay, I got to make sure password matches. I'll just make sure user exists. Make sure password matches. So at this point, I don't need this, do I? But I do have user. I'll just say user obj equals user result dot data result. So that will still be true. And what's this user document key? Where did that come from? Back to the source control. User conduit web users handlers login result login request handler. I need to come up with a better way to get to these from Visual Studio, maybe. All right. What was it? User document key. Oh, okay. That's just it's just the same thing. But that is a detail that I don't need to know because I'm not in the data access. So I'll just pull it right from the request. I need to reuse it twice. Okay. So I just did the refactoring. Okay, so very good. I can get rid of the models there. There is no couch base being used here. Oh, missing XML. All right, and so now get current user, oh wait, login, request handler, tests. Do unit tests first. And this is going to be, yeah, we need a new mock. This is a user data service mock. This new mock. User data service. Why do I have to type that in? Why can't it find it for me? Okay. User service data mock. Dot object. Objet for our French viewers. Okay. And so these need to go away. But I need to replace them with another mock. Setup. So the first one we need to do is, we've got this exists. I don't need to mock that out, I don't think. So this is just, okay. M.get user by email, and it is request.model.user.email. And that's going to returns a sync of user and database. Well, don't you like that? Database is not null here. Huh? Oh, this needs to be, yeah, it's new. Okay, new, yeah, that's right. User in database and status is okay. Everything else should pass. Okay, this one, well, I'll just run that one test. Nope. Can't do it. Everything got to compile first. Okay. Wait, is this integration test? Oh, this is integration test. Okay. Users collection provider. What? What was it before? Yeah, user collection. Okay, not underscore. Okay. Okay, so now can I run this single test just to make sure this is working? It is working. Okay, on to the next one. We'll get rid of these comments. Okay, get rid of that mock, but it does need to have another mock to replace it. I'll use C there instead of M. This is okay, this is where it doesn't exist. So it still uses get user by email. Model.user.email. But it's going to return something different this time. A new data service result, null object, whatever, and not found. Okay, passing. Yep, okay, we're doing good. We're doing good. We're making progress here. Okay, users, data service mock, setup, get user by email. What is this testing? Invalid credentials. Okay. And it's the same one, request model user email. Returns async. And this one is yep. No result, but not found. Is that right? We're testing that the credentials are invalid. It returns unauthorized. All right, because his password doesn't matches. Password doesn't match. So it's actually correct to return the user in this case. Yes, but the password will not match. Okay, passing. No mocking needed here because this is about validation. This is also about validation. So there we go. And I'll also run the integration test, which is login. What's happening? Login, request handler, tests, integration. So it'll take a little longer to run because it's actually hitting a real database. But hopefully it should pass as well. And it does. On a roll today. Okay. So that one's down. What's next? That was nice because we already had this code written. So, oh, missed the pop filter there. So didn't have to do any more than that. Maybe some more comments here. Make sure passwords match. It's not really necessary to code this because it says right there it does password match, but that's fine. Okay, what's the next one? Registration request handler. Meeting time, etc. Happy weekend. Thank you very much, Napalm. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a great weekend. Appreciate all your feedback, participation. Have a good one. I will be closing up the stream around noon my time, which is about 45 minutes from now. So just keep that in mind. About 45 minutes more to go. And honestly, I might, if I don't finish this all on the stream, I might just do this off the stream because this is kind of rote at this point, doing this refactoring. But I will leave anything important for the next stream, I promise. Okay, let's keep going. This is the registration. So this is someone creating a new account, signing up for our Conduit site. So we've got some validation, which has to be there. Database, auth, and then more database, and then results. So we've got two different times we're hitting the database. No, this is not. This actually can probably be moved down here. Yeah, I don't even need that until that point. So let's move this down here. So this is just creating a salt, just an arbitrary salt for the user. Here is the user we want to insert. Username, password, password salt. This is, yeah, username. And we have email also. Okay, so that probably should be part of this model, I think. And the only reason I had it separated out is because database stuff had leaked into this handler. So in this case, now we're passing it all to database and saying you deal with email, username, all that kind of stuff, which is handy because now when I go back to change this, because right now email is the primary key or the document key, don't want that to be the case. But now I wanted to make any changes here, I can let the data access layer handle those changes. So one less reason to touch this handler. So we're kind of going against a single responsibility principle here in a sense. So if we wanted to tie this back to one of our solid principles, that would be the one I'm pointing to here. So we've got more than just unit tests as a reason to separate this out. So it really got three reasons. One is it just feels like it's the right thing. Two is single responsibility principle. Three is easier to mock for unit tests. All right. Those are all kind of the same reason. But I do need to change this into... this would be, I don't know, user result. Yeah. And that's going to be await. I don't have it injected yet, so we'll get rid of this. Don't need that directly, but I will make this to user data service. Okay. User data service. Register new user, and we'll put in user to insert right there. Easy as that. Create this method, and it should return the user, right? No. It should not return user. It should return data service result of user. What's going on with my microphone here? Come on, behave. Bad microphone. Okay. And we'll create a empty method for now. And all this is doing in here, oh, this needs to be async. Okay, and user to insert. So I know that the key should be email. Now here's the thing to notice. If you are familiar with Couchbase, you know that the key is separate from the actual documents. Now one thing, I did this earlier, is I set JSON ignore on the email because I don't want the email to be the key and a value in the document. Potentially get out of sync, just duplicate information to store. So whenever a user is being passed into, a user objects being passed into, let's say, insert, it's getting serialized to JSON. However, it's not going to include email in that JSON data just because of that attribute there, which is the desired behavior. That's what I want. Okay. All right, and then we'll return data service user. This is okay. Yep, and data result status okay. Yes. Okay, that's good, except one other problem. This could cause an exception if that user, the email is already taken. So I will put that in a try catch. There's not a try insert on the API that I know of, so we'll have to do a document exists exception and return new data service user null data, and it's not going to be not found. It's just going to be a different status. It's going to be I don't know. I'm trying to make these generic, right? It's not found. It's just, I don't know, invalid. Or, I don't know, unable to insert. Key already exists. Document already exists. Data already exists. Yeah, I think that's fine. We'll go with that. We can always rename that later. Okay. Put this comment down here just to indicate why I'm doing this try catch, handling this exception. Okay, and so back here, coming out this try catch, because what I'm basically going to replace that with is if user result dot status equals data already exists, then I want to return this right here. Okay. Now potentially there could be another enumeration, a non-OK enumeration, but I'm not handling that currently, so I'm not going to start handling it now. That might be something I have to deal with later. Okay, never returning image in bio because registering a new user. Take out this comment here. Okay, so construct new user object. Try to put new user into database. If user with same key already exists, return error. And then this is just going to be construct view model to return. All right, and those are kind of tied together. All righty, so I'm pretty happy with that. Registration request handler tests. We want unit tests. Also notice I can take Couchbase out of there because it's now in the underlying service. Okay, so this is the handler. It's interesting that I did that in the setup here, but whatever. Maybe I just forgot to do that. I don't know. This validator stuff, but I also need to put in the data service, user data service mock.object. That one's getting a little long, but whatever. User data service mock equals new mock of user data service. Okay. I've got this default username is not a duplicate, so that needs to be changed. Actually, that can probably be... See, this is another... Look at this complicated mock setup here. This is because I'm trying to mock the database API. I really don't need to do that anymore. I'll need to be more explicit down here. So, valid registration, return registration results. So, those auths can all stay there, but I need to change the user mock to say, hey, yeah, it worked just fine. M dot register new user. I don't really care. It is whatever user it is. That's fine. But I do want it to return something. And it's going to return what? Just the user, right? Which I don't have. Arranged user expected to be returned by database. User in database, well, it's not in the database until this succeeds, so new user, I'll just say, equals new user, and give it all this stuff. So bio is null. What? Email is submitted info dot email. Just going to match the submissions. Don't really care what password is. It's not checking it on the way out. So whatever. Password salt doesn't matter. Username, it needs to match up there. Submitted info dot username, and that's it. I think all I really need to care about. So this is going to return new user, and the status is going to be okay. So this can go away. Is this going to compile for me? Oh, what's this? Yep, missing a semicolon. Okay. Run it. Nope, still not compiling. Okay, this is the integration test. Okay, so that needs to be fixed there. The user data service, and that's just going to users collection provider. Okay. It's so long. There's got to be a way to use the DI component to handle that stuff, but I'm not worried about it right now. Oh, we got a fail. Wait, what? Oh. Because the validation is hitting the database as well. How is that not failing before? Validator. That's probably what that code was I had up there. This. To just make sure this is always returning. Yeah, it's fine. So probably need to refactor this to use the data access layer as well. Yep, there we go. Always with the refactoring. Okay. This is a user data service. Okay. So basically, I just want to say, yeah, this is going to be a brand new method, I think. So this is going to be await user data service dot get user, and this is going by username. That's a difference here. This is a new one, username, a new method. This all needs to go in there. All of this, my goodness. Well, not all of this, but most of this. Create method. Okay. Data service results of user once again. So this is where SQL++ is actually going to be used. But again, I will switch this because I want to use username as the key instead. If the username was the key, I wouldn't have to use a SQL statement. But for right now, I'm going to just refactor this as it is, and I can change it later. Don't have a cancellation token this time. This should be async. Okay, so this is going to get that collection, get all the scope bucket cluster stuff, create the SQL query, execute the query, returns the result to list. I don't want a count though. That's the thing. This might be better off called something different. But no, I don't think so. I think it's better to go this way. So I don't want count. What I want is u.star. I don't really mean u.star, I don't think. I'll come back to that. So really what I want is the first one. So I can say, yes, the results, query, let's call this query results, and we'll call this, just call this result, I guess, equals query result dot to list async. Yeah, basically just this. So that gives me a list. Now, hypothetically, it can be, any number of users with the same username. There's no constraint in the database. But in reality, it's going to be either 0 or 1 results. So if result.any, we say if not any, we can return a new result with null, and data result is not found. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to return a new of that one, and then first, and data result, okay. So this is a little bit dangerous here. What doesn't it like? Oh, it shouldn't be int, it should be user. This is a little dangerous here because this will throw an exception if there's more than one, but that's okay. That's exceptional situation. And this needs to be renamed to get user by username SQL. Okay, and that's good. So then back to this. The validator. Yep, okay. So then we can just say return user dot data results not equals user dot no, not that, data results status dot okay. Not data results. Gosh. Status. Okay. So that will return. Gosh. So if status is not okay, then that means it already exists. Yeah, I don't really like that. I should call this something like failed to insert. Yeah, I think that's a little more, just a little more accurate. So if it's not okay, then it already exists. So many reverse negatives here. So what do I want this to return? If it's okay, then that means it's already there. It does exist. User already exists equals if the user status is okay, which I don't want. So I'm going to return not of that. Yep. So again, that's just like we were talking about earlier. This is, I could probably condense this into one line, probably condense this whole thing into one line, but I want to make this a little more readable, easier to follow. So what am I testing for? Get the user. Does it exist? If so, then that's not good for our validation. Now, one thing I need to think about here is, do I really want to do a select u.star? Now, I know that I'm going to refactor this in the future, so I'll probably leave it for now. But what I'm trading off here is reusability, if I want to come back and use this method in the future to actually get the user, for potentially some performance issues. Because now it's going to actually have to get all the data from whatever matches this user, which is generally going to be 1, so it's not a big deal. But there might be a small performance difference changing this from count to u.star. Small difference at large scale, it could make, it could mean the difference between, half a second and 0.4 of a second, right? So I don't know. Might want to revisit that. Consider revisiting this and spinning out a separate does user exist method on this data service. Can never spell separate right on the first chance. Or revisiting, apparently. So I'll leave that as a to-do for performance scale reasons. We'll come back to that, but I know I'm going to really refactor this whole thing, so I'm just going to leave it for now. Okay. So when that's the case, back to my tests. Wait, is this the, no, I want the integration test. Request, registration request, handler, tests, integration. Okay. Yes, so now I have to, instead of passing that in twice, I have to pass this in twice. So that checks out. Alrighty. Just going to compile. No. What did I miss here? All right, this needs to be changed as well. Yep, okay. So instead of passing around the low-level couch-based database objects, which was what I was doing before, now I'm passing in kind of a wrapper around the data access objects. So I don't have to mock Couchbase directly anymore, which is not a problem. It's not difficult to mock. It's just easier to mock a wrapper than it is to mock Couchbase. And of course, the benefit is the Couchbase SDK changes. If I want to change from SQL to key value or vice versa, I can make that change in those data classes without having to touch the handlers or the tests or anything like that. All right, so let's run this integration test. Hopefully it'll pass this time. And it does. What? This one? This one says failing. I'm going to go ahead and run all these again. Don't like seeing any red. Oh, what doesn't it like now? Because I probably didn't mock something. Okay, gosh. This is, again, where I mocked, yeah, so. Okay, so at this point, what I'm not mocking here is the validation code. Although I think this would have affected it, right? Because I'm mocking it already here. Okay, we got a null reference exception, which probably means something wasn't mocked. Get user by username. Oh, right, I didn't mock that part out. Okay, so in this case, I always want to mock it, right? Because it's always going to be checking that. Get user by username, okay? And submitted info dot username. And that's just going to return async. New results. New user, fine. Oh wait, no. No, this needs to return null. Not found. That's what I want it to return, right? Yes. Hey, Tail on Code. I was in a meeting. Go back over everything you just did in the last 35 minutes. Refactoring. There, I summed it up in one word. Refactoring. I'm putting all the Couchbase data access into its own user data service. And now I'm just refactoring tests. So I've been doing that over and over. It's getting pretty rote, as I mentioned. If I don't finish this end of the stream, I'll probably finish it off the stream because it is just kind of getting repetitive. So, but make as much progress as I can today before noon my time. That's about 25 minutes from now. Okay, so that one passes now. What else fails? Everything else fails. Okay, because I basically have to add that to every one of these tests. Why don't I just add it? This is what I did before. Just add it up here. Oh. Well, that's fine. It is any string. By default, user does not already exist. And so then I can just, in the one or two tests that the user does already exist, I can just replace that. So that means that these should all pass now, except for like one or two, right? Yep, there we go. So user does already exist. Yep, right here. So this needs to be okay. This will return, it doesn't really matter. New user, doesn't matter what it is. I'm actually looking at it. Let's see what happens. Oh, still fails. True but was false. User already exists. Okay. Am I not... Wait a second. My test might be wrong here. No. Register a new user. Should return. Okay. Register a new user. Setup. Register a new user. It is any user, don't care. That should return. Again, doesn't matter. That should return failed to insert. But it's never going to happen. That's never going to happen, though. Because my validation checks for that ahead of time. This is a pointless test, I think. Well, so what's the error message I'm getting here? User already exists. Equals true. Why isn't it returning that? I think because it'll never get there. Because validation will always stop it in the first place. I think this test is pointless. Comment this out just to make sure. Okay. What about this one? Username already exists error. Again, I think this is... What is going on here? User already exists in DB by email. So this is checking email. This one is username. What is the validation checking? Registration, request, validator. So this is checking username, but the database actually checks, okay. So this was not a pointless test, I don't think. But I don't need to check this at all. Right, so maybe this is the right combination here. Yeah, okay. This is a useful test. The other one I think is the one that's not useful. This user already exists. Oh, okay. This is looking okay. So that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay. All right. We're good. We're good. Okay. I just need to replace the mock. Setup m.getUser by, we're going by username here. Yes. Submitted info.username. That's going to return async. Where's a new, yes, and don't care about what user is. No, it's going to return a null. And no, it doesn't return a user. Don't care what the user is, but it's going to return an OK, which means set up database mock to for user with username already exists. Okay. There we go. Alrighty. Okay. So that's done. On to the next one. Just working my way through the handlers here. Update user handler. Okay. This one will take a little bit of work, I think, so probably won't get to this today. But this one's kind of interesting, though. No, this won't take that long. No, this won't take that long. This will be fine. Okay. The interesting part is the updating only the fields that are not empty, which this is what I'm handling here. So this is kind of an interesting feature of NoSQL databases, is that with SQL, you're always writing SQL. So you'd always say, instead of all this stuff, I'd say update username equals foo, where bar equals baz. What I'm doing, and I could do that. I could write a SQL query to do that, but SQL invokes some overhead. So instead I'm going to use the key value API. The key value API has something called a subdocument API. And subdocument means don't update the entire JSON document, just update individual pieces. So this is the API for that. When you say specs upsert, it means just upsert this username field. Specs upsert bio, specs upsert image, and there's if statements wrapping those. So if the user didn't specify an image or didn't specify a bio, then I don't want to blank those things. I'm just taking that as you only want to update the individual fields that you gave me. So that's what all these if statements are that are wrapping that. So I don't think this will be that difficult to do. I'll need to get rid of this lower level Couchbase object, just like I've been doing. And we'll put in instead the iUsers data service. Again, just like I've been doing. And just replace this with an await. Users collection, not user collection provider, user data service dot update update user fields, and we'll pass in request dot model dot user. So that is a view model, actually. Oh, sorry, submit model. That's what that is. So I'd be tying the submit model to my data access layer, which might be fine. And I'm not doing any error collection here, or error handling here, which I might need, but not worried about that right now. So update user fields, and this might be definitely worth a comment as well. So this method will only update, let's just upsert values from the arguments that are not null or empty. If the value you specify is null or empty, then that field will be unchanged. There might be a better way to express this in C#. I'm not sure what that would be yet, but I'm going to think about that. Okay. So I'm going to take this and put it over here. Make this async. Okay, and instead of all of this, I can just place this with much shorter fields to update. Feels like some kind of lambda, or maybe just breaking this out into optional fields instead of one big model. I don't know. Love to hear comments on that. I know I'm getting towards the end of the stream, but oh, we got this auth service in here too. Well, I don't want this to be tied to auth service, I don't think. So if the password is not null or empty, then we're changing the password, which means I need to generate salt and hash it with the salt. Time to leave for another meeting. Oh, thanks, Taylor and Code. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy your meeting, I guess. But more importantly, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for hanging out. This one's kind of annoying because salt and password are coupled together, and that's on purpose. Maybe I can put auth service in here. I don't see a reason not to. Maybe that's the way to go for now. I don't know. Auth service, auth service, and auth service. That would be the easiest way to go about changing this. Okay. All right. So there's updating the user. Read the whole user back out. So then I can just say user equals wait, and I already have this. Get user by email. Request dot model.user.email. Okay. User doc obj, but again, that was kind of a leaky detail, so that goes away. What is this? Oh, this is user result. User equals user result dot data result. What? Dot data result. So I'm not actually checking for any errors here. I'm just kind of assuming everything's okay. Probably need to think about that in the future, but okay. Update the user fields. Get the user back out. Post update. And then return view. Okay. So a couple things I'm not super happy with this. One is not handling errors. Two is the way that I'm communicating this, I don't feel like is super clear. I wish there was a way to be more explicit about that without being super verbose. Yeah, and I wanted to refactor this, but this is something unrelated. I wanted to do this anyway. Something I still may do, but ignore that for now. I'm also not happy that I'm connected to the auth service, but that might be okay. I think this is acceptable for now. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and run the tests. Update user, and probably not run them, but they're probably not going to compile. Yep. So this needs to be, first of all, user data service mock equals new mock of I user data service. Yes, very exciting mock. Okay. Update user request file. This needs, okay, we need to do the same thing there. But come to that point in a second. This was mock. Okay. This is hard for me to read. It's all the way wrapped around like this. Okay. So the first thing I'm passing in is the validator. That's what this is. That needs to change, but worry about that. What's next? Oh yeah, I think I just changed the order, right? Is that what I did? Yeah, okay. Alrighty. By default, username is already taken, so that's what I was doing before. Oh, I like that formatting better. Where did I make that change? Registration, request handler, unit tests. Yep, I'm going to just copy that, borrow it. Oh, in this case, it is already taken by default. Okay. All right. Everything compile now or no? Okay. So much auth service everywhere. Okay. That's in the integration test. You know, I'm going to go ahead and finish this this test and the service. I think if I go a little over, so be it. This needs auth service as well. Auth service. Okay, this is okay because I added auth service. Need to add that everywhere. Ugh. Annoying. So this is why I would like to have. I probably should have some sort of DI or container or something to handle all this stuff. But what are you gonna do? I'll take user handler tests. Is this back to where I was actually testing in the first place? Yes. Okay. This needs to be auth service. And this needs to be user. Wait, what am I? Update user? Didn't I mock it out? Oh, user data service dot object mock. I thought I did this. Wow. Oh, this is an integration test. Okay. Okay. That's why. Okay. Now, back here can only be changed if new name is not already taken. So the problem with this is going to be using the validator. Update user request validator, which is also using a SQL query. So, got to get rid of that. Replace that with user data service. Okay. And down here, basically the same thing I did before. So let me just go and copy and paste that. Request, registration, request, validator, yep. Just replace all that with this. No, I can't do that. Can't do that. This is slightly different. Because this is the user already exists. You can't change your username to someone else's username. But I don't want to yeah, so if you try to you're allowed to change your username, but you can't change it to someone else's username that already exists. So I need to create another method in here. So user result equals await user data service dot get user by email and username. And so this is going to be model.user.email, model.user.username. Seems like a very mono-purpose object, but or method, but that's just the way it goes. Okay, and then all this stuff can go in there for the most part. Right here. Should be async. Okay, so instead of that, I'm going to say username. Why is this username? Username and email. Okay. And so once again, I can change this to u.star. Now this, in this case, I may not come back to refactor it, because this is going to have to use SQL no matter what. No matter how I change my key structure and data structure, this has got to use SQL. So this might be a case where, yeah, I'll also put some more notes in here. Switch this to maybe change this method. In fact, why don't I just go and do that? This is a very single purpose. So does exists user by email and username. So this is not going to return that. It's going to return Boolean. That's it. So I'm only interested in getting a true and false from that method. I don't want to actually ever get a user and by email and username. Doesn't make any sense except for validation. So where was I? Your validator. So all I need to do is just really return this. Does it exist? Oh, if it, okay. Does a different user exist with the given username equals that. And so return not the case. Okay, so again, just kind of, because this does not match any of the username, this doesn't match the username, so I want to reverse it. Okay, I think we're good there. Reflection. Oh gosh, why was I using reflection? Don't ever do that. Okay, back to this. So username is already taken. I want the username to be taken here, so I'm going to set up a mock for this one. It's there's no reason not to pass the actual values in here. Submit.user.email and submit.user.username will return true. Oh, we got some more stragglers here. Update user request. This should be data service. Wait, is this integration? Yep. See, look at this. This is getting out of control. All this object graph here is something I should not be building up by hand, but I come to deal with that later. Okay, we're back in the integration test now. Good. User data service mock dot object. Okay. Pass. Great. What about the rest of them? Email. Oh, I got a breakpoint set here. Valid email must be specified. Okay. At least one field must be specified to update. Yep. Bio must not be too long. So I'm just going to run all these. See what fails. None of them. Okay. Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we're exactly at 12. So I'm going to call this an endpoint right now. I've finished this one. There's a few other, one or two others need to, maybe that's the last one. If that's the last one, then great. But I'm not going to finish this on the stream. This is just kind of rote refactoring. So thank you for joining me. I will be in streaming again on Tuesday. Let me double check my calendar to make sure. Yes, so next Tuesday I'm actually going to the Dayton.net user group. So I'll be streaming in the morning, having lunch, and then driving out to Dayton to present to that user group out there. Haven't been to Dayton in a while. Excited to get back. It's not a far drive for me from Columbus. So we got this working. I do need to refactor my database access to switch username and email. So that's something I will do on the stream next Tuesday. But that's all for today. I appreciate you all joining me. I hope you join me next Tuesday. But I'm going to right now, let's see who is online, and we can do a little raid. Lots of people going online here. So we've got James Q. Quick. I don't think he's doing any coding there. Let's see. Okay, that's interesting stuff there. We might raid James. So we got Tim Boudreau. Looks like a stream party, not actually coding. Tom Katz is an actual cat. And a very comfy looking chair. So looks like doing some add-ons for World of Warcraft. That's kind of cool. Jessica Mack. That doesn't look like it's English. But that's an ad, I think. Pirate Software has got a huge amount already. I'm really thinking about rating James Q. Quick. So let's go ahead and do that. James Q. Quick. Hope you'll join me over there for the raid. Again, thank you for joining me today. I hope we'll see you again on Tuesday. And hope you all have a great weekend. So that's it for now.